Hey guys, welcome to the 10th video in the Python programming tutorial for beginners. This will be the first video in classes and object-oriented programming in Python. And in the first video here, I'll go over the basic concepts of classes and object-oriented programming. And I'll tell you about why object-oriented programming is so important. And we're going to talk about classes and what should be in classes and why it's so important to use. And then in the next video, we're going to go over how to set up a class and also like how to operate with classes in Python. So let's jump into the computer and I'll show you some examples with objects and just classes in general. So we're now back in the Jupyter Notebook, and in this video I'm just going to show you some different kind of figures about object-oriented programming, and I'm going to tell you about object-oriented programming in general in Python, and we're going to talk about classes. And in the first example here, we're going to talk about classes and object-oriented programming, and we'll get an overview over what it is. And if you see down here on this picture here, we can see that the first thing we have is a class, which is kind of like a blueprint. And then when we have a class, we can have an object of that class, which is just an instance of that class, you can say. And then for an object, you can have different attributes, which is just data, where we can have different data types and stuff like that as attributes to our object and then our class. And then we can also have methods for our classes and objects, which is just behaviors of this object. So when we create a class, we can create an object of that class, which is an object, and then we can have attributes and methods for that class or object, which we'll use a bit more when I'll show you some code examples in Python later in the next video. So what is an object and how does it work? Like we can see here in this picture, we have an object which is the blue circle here, and then an object it can have some public methods like this, and then it can also like have private methods. So like the public methods, they can be used all over the program, but if you have some private methods, like those methods can only be called on the certain object here. And we can also like have private data, so only the object can access the private data we have declared in our class definition. So we'll see more about this in the next video, where we're going. I'm going to show you examples of all these kinds of methods and how to create an object and a class in Python. And we can also like have interaction and interface between. And when we have an object, we can have the public methods which we can have interaction and interface with other objects or just somewhere else in our code. So that's pretty much about an object, which can have public methods and private methods that only the object itself can access. And then in the last example here, I'm just going to show you some different kind of examples of classes and subclasses. And when we're going to create classes, it's more about like the most difficult thing is to like find out what kind of elements and what types of things need to be in classes and what kind of things need to be in subclasses. So if we just take the example and go over it, we have like, for example, here we have a class which is the parent class here, which is just electronic items. So electronics items, and then we can say like R, and then we can create subclasses from electronic items, because like electronics item is very wide, so we can like divide them into smaller subclasses. So when we have an electronic item, we can have, for example, a phone or a sound system. So if we just go to the phone first, we can have a phone which is like a part of an electronic item. So it can have like the same attributes like an electronic item. It could be like ID or some number, or it could have a price attribute or something like that. And then the phone can inherit from the parent class here. So as a phone will be a subclass, and then we can also like have subclasses of that phone. We mainly use like subclasses from like parent classes when they have the same attributes. So let's say like a phone number, a phone class here, it will have an attribute that is, for example, the phone number, and then these two subclasses of the phone here, it will also like have It will also have a phone number, but then we can just use like this kind of attribute from from the phone class here. So every class is like it's more simple, and you will get a better overview of your program when you like divide it into subclasses. If we take like the sound system over here, we can have a sound system, and then we can either have like ear plugs or stereos, but it will still like have the same attributes and also methods like volume and stuff like that. So then instead of just having volume like for earpod plugs and stereos, we can just like have volume for sound systems, and then we can like use it from earplugs and stereos or other subclasses of a class here. So like earplugs, stereos, core phones, mobile phones, like they're all electronic items, but they're subclasses of them. So we kind of divide our classes into smaller classes to get a better overview, and also like to just divide items into what it is. So that's pretty much it for this video. We have been going over like the explanation of classes and the basic stuff in object-oriented programming, Python in general. And all of these examples will go over some code in the next video. This was just to like get an introduction to classes and object-oriented programming. So what we've been talking about in this video, I'm going to show you some different kind of code examples in the next video, and I'll show you how to set up a class in Python and how to use the attributes and methods on different kind of object, and also how to create an object from a class and then use the class somewhere where we want to. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys, and I hope you'll subscribe to this channel and just help me grow it so we can get more videos in the future and stuff like that. In the next couple of videos, we're going to like focus on object-oriented programming. We have learned about the basic stuff in previous videos now in Python, so now we're just going into like more important thing and more practical thing like we're using when we're creating bigger projects or programs. So I'm very excited for the next couple of videos where we're talking about class and object-oriented programming, and I'm going to show you a lot of examples so you can get better and how to like get better at like using object-oriented programming, and I'm going to show you like more why it is so important to learn. So that's it for this video, guys. Remember to subscribe and like the video and stuff like that so we can help grow the channel, and see you in the next video, guys. Bye.